In 2006, Barbara Broccoli was looking for the man who would take over from Pierce Brosnan as a sixth 007. One night, on a visit to the cinema, she saw Daniel Craig in the movie Munich. More importantly, she saw her Bond staring back at her from the screen. From that moment onwards, in her mind, there was only one actor that she wanted to play the super spy.
I think that Daniel would have seen Bond as a definite risk because he was a very credible actor that was going to have a very credible career, come what may. You know, he was already going to work with Steven Spielberg. You know, he definitely had a good career mapped out for him.
As a child, I dreamt of being James Bond. I think a million other kids dreamt of being it. But as an adult, it just never was. It was not on my radar. And as an actor, I thought, well, you know, it's very nice. And I got this call, and they said, come along. And I said, thank you. That's lovely. I'm very honoured. But what the hell are you on about? This is sort of, you know, craziness.
Bond, if it had gone wrong for him, would have been a big disaster. You know, it really would have tarnished him. It would have undermined his credibility with all of the interesting directors that he wanted to work with. So, yeah, I think it was a huge risk.
Daniel later confessed he was surprised to be asked to become James Bond, number 6.
What made you finally decide to take the leap and take on the part? Because I know they were wooing you for a while and it was going on for a while. What was the deciding factor?
The script, really. I mean, and believe me, when I picked it up and I thought, well, you know, this is going to be an easy decision. I'm going to read this, hate it, and say, no, you know, move on. And I read it within about sort of 20 minutes, rushed through it, and then reread it and thought, oh, here we go, I'm going to have to do this now.
So you were kind of doomed?
I kind of was, yeah.
Daniel wasn't the only one that was surprised.
Casino Royale, in terms of his career, obviously is a big leap forward because he's gone from being a really respected, you know, character actor with leading man potential in smaller budget movies to now, you know, A-list Hollywood star.
The big question now seemed to be, could Daniel Craig carry Bond to new heights, or would he crash and burn, destroying one of the most promising careers and one of the biggest brands in the world of film?
The name's Craig, Daniel Craig. After months of speculation, the coveted job of being the next 007 has been landed by the 37-year-old English actor. But after 4 decades of tall, dark and handsome, are we ready for the first blonde Bond?
When the blonde actor Daniel Craig was chosen to become the 6th actor to assume the mantle of super spy James Bond in October 2005, he was faced with a myriad of challenges. Well known as a risk-taking actor, Craig was forced to consider the impact such a well-established character might have on his career. Added to this was the fact that he was physically unlike any of the 5 previous Bonds, all of whom had been well over 6 feet tall and dark-haired.
Bond. James Bond.
This is a properly trained theatre actor who is working on screen. This isn't just a movie star who is chasing kind of shallow roles. I think he looks at the work, he looks at the material, he looks at the directors that he works with, and he wants to do really interesting work, complex roles, roles that allow him to really show something as an actor, and I think that's the area that he's interested in performing.
If Craig harbored doubts about how he would deal with his new role, some fans and critics had already made up their minds. They'd decided he was the wrong man for the job. Hardcore Bond fans even set up a fan site dedicated to criticizing Craig, long before he even began studying for the part. Film critics were no kinder than the fans, referring to Craig derisively as the blonde Bond and a girly Bond with a girly gun.
There was a lot of backlash against him because he hasn't got that traditional look. He doesn't look like Pierce Brosnan or Sean Connery in his younger days. He doesn't fit that mould.
I mean, nobody knows more than I do how important this is to some people, and, you know, it's my job to get it right. So I get that. That's not a deal. The rest of it, you know, I mean, there's that stuff been in the press, and then there's been some good stuff this week, and what do I believe? I mean, do I believe the good stuff? I mean, I'm just getting on with this.
The anger was only increased when rumors began circulating that the upcoming Bond film would not feature such long-running popular characters as Secretary Miss Moneypenny and Gadgetmeister Q. Worst of all, the wonderful gadgets and spy gear that were integral to every Bond film were also going to be done away with. Fortunately for Craig, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, Roger Moore, and Timothy Dalton all voiced their support for the heir to the Bond title.
it's a big pair of shoes to step into, and I've spoken with Piers, and you know, his support is really very important to me.
Now determined to be the best Bond possible, Daniel Craig undertook a rigorous course of fitness training in preparation for the more physically demanding aspects of the role. Craig even insisted on doing many of his own stunts.
I just started trying to get fit. I have a personal trainer on the movie, Simon, who's just been, you know, a godsend for me. But you'd see how physical the job is. You may have been upset today. And I just figured, you know, I've got to be in the best shape I can, otherwise I won't survive it. And I've just been at it.
Daniel Craig also began contemplating the character traits of a 21st century master spy.
I think they must have really persuaded him that the films were going to change. You know, that the character was going to change, that it wasn't going to be just the kind of, you know, all of the silly puns and the kind of the whole formula reworked all over again with all the, you know, rubbishy CGI and invisible cars. I think they must have really said to him, look, there's a reason we are hiring you to play this character. It's not going to just be, you know, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, you know, all over again. It's going to be something different. And obviously he took a leap of faith and he went with them.
He shows Bond falling in love. He shows Bond being ready almost to abandon his career in the Secret Service for his love. That's all a kind of fantastic stuff. It's a fantastic counterpoint to his capacity for cruelty and his capacity for being a killing machine, is that underneath that you see the kind of beating heart, the vulnerable beating heart of James Bond, the ordinary guy.
Craig decided that his Bond should be more vulnerable, fallible, and reckless than previous Bonds.
I want to make the audience sort of go, oh my God, it's all going to go wrong. Believe that it's going to go wrong, and then when it goes right, it's much more exciting.